you know. Now you were born in Lebanon,
I
right?
was born in Lebanon.
In Thurshwire.
In 1903. May 14th, 1903.
Okay, now your mother, what was her name?
Rasha. Rache, R-A-C-H-E. Heichel.
And your father's name was what?
Evelyn Mittry. Murray. M-U-R-R-A-Y.
And did you ever know your grandmother and your grandfather there?
Yes, of course. My grandmother came to this country with us and practically raised us.
And what was her name?
Her name was, you know how they say in the old country, Imsada. She's Seda's mother. Imsada. Let me see. Heichel. Her name was Heichel.
And what was his name?
Who, my grandfather?
Your grandfather on that.
His first name, I don't remember.
His last name was?
His last name was
Heichel?
Heichel, yeah. He was a Heichel. That's...
Do you remember her maiden name?
God, I should. Nellie would know, but I wouldn't.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Okay, now what about... okay, now...
Let me see. Her maiden name. Trod. Yeah.
Trod.
She was a Trod family, which was it's like the Doheenies and the Morgans.
Mm-hmm.
They were very prominent. Grandma's family. Very high-class family. Min Eilis Trod, from the family of Trod. T-R-A-D-D.
And did everybody live in Schweier?
Yes. You know, Schweier, you remember, It's like a bowl, like this. And it was a very small community, and they intermarried and married, and everybody was related to everybody. Everybody, see, Daddy and I were related before we were married.
You were? In what way?
In what way?
Distantly?
It's distant, very distant related, but from the same family, like they had Eilis, the family of Batum Jahas, and we were from the family of Batum Jahas, Mujahas, like Adib. You know, Adib was Mujahas.
Right.
And the whole family of Mujahas, and he was part of it.
Okay.
And his father worked, when my father left the old country, he didn't trust anybody but his father to take care of everything that my father left.
And then, okay, now, my grandfather's mother and father, do you remember their names? His mother and father.
You mean
Saheed.
Tommy?
No, Saheed. Your husband.
Yeah.
What was his mother and father's names? Do you remember their names?
That one, you mean the grandmother?
Yes, my grandfather's mother and father. Were they in Dushwire?
Yeah, they were in Hudashwara. They all lived there. And Grandma's name was, you want her first name?
Yeah, do you remember her? The family name?
The family name, yes.
Mittry?
Mittry Abdunur.
Mittry Abdunur?
You know, Mittry is our middle name, his middle name.
Right.
So, but he said Abdunur was so difficult for the American people to pronounce, so he changed it when he got his citizen papers.
Oh.
Mittry Abdunur. Mittry was the middle name. Mittry Saheed Abdunur. That's your grandfather.
My grandfather, but
That's
now...
this grandfather.
Right, my grandfather. Okay, now what about his father?
His father...
and mother's names
they're
were what?
Abdunur.
Abdunur.
Abdunur. Batum Ja'as and Batum Ja'as.
Did you ever know his grandmother and grandfather?
That's going back a little
Weird.
too far. His, no.
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 All right, that's too far.
But, oh God, you could have gotten all of that from Adib while we were there.
Yeah.
In the old country, he could have given you history way back.
Okay, well now then, you were born in 1903.
Uh-huh.
And your mother and your father. Now, what did your father do? What was?
My father had a big department store, and he owned the lumber yard in Lebanon.
In Schweier?
In Schweier. Ture Schweier.
He owned a department store and a lumber yard.
Yeah, you know, their department store, they just have a little store and they have everything in it.
Yeah, like a general store.
General store. Sure. They called it a department store.
And then what did my grandfather's father do? What was his business?
His father was in the merchandising.
Merchandising?
Yeah, he bought goods and materials and sold them. He wasn't successful in business, isn't that funny? And then look at his sons, they were all successful, especially Saheed. Saheed was the most successful, my husband. But
now, how many brothers my grandfather
there they
had?
are, 4 that lived. And she lost a set of twin boys, Grandma, in the old country when they were young.
And what were their names? All of his brothers.
Michelle was one of them, I remember. Michelle, but I can't remember the other.
But these up here, what are their names?
That's Elmise is the youngest, then F.K., then Oscar, then my husband, then Shahla. You met Shahla. She was the oldest.
Oh, that was
Saeed's older sister. She's older than my husband.
Oh, okay. And then...
there's the rest of the family. Tamam and Melia and Emmeline. These are the girls.
Oh, there were girls.
Yeah.
Other sisters?
Yeah, all sisters in that picture. And
so
the 4 boys.
4 boys and how many girls?
There was, let me see, Tamam, Emmeline, Melia, and Melky, and Shahla, 5 girls.
5 girls and 4 boys?
5 girls and 6 boys.
Because 2 died.
2 died.
11?
11 children.
11 children?
Yeah. She had 11 children.
Okay, now...
That's nothing. They have 15, 18.
Gee.
And that's there. Then that was a small family. My mother had 8, 4 boys and 4 girls.
And who were they now?
Teddy, of course, is my stepbrother.
Okay, but now your mother was married to, what was his name again?
Evelyn Mittry.
Mittry, okay.
That's my my father.
Your real father.
My real father. That's him right there.
Right there.
In between.
That's your real father right there? Okay.
He was brilliant. He was the best speaker in Lebanon. Whenever they had any doings, they wanted him, and he went to Egypt and represented Lebanon when somebody came to Lebanon and they were murdered, and they couldn't find the murderer, and they tried to blame it on the Lebanese people, and the Lebanese people had nothing to do with it. It was some outsider, and my father was the representative, and he went to Egypt and appeared before the board and the kings and whoever Egyptians were then, and he was such an eloquent speaker that and they liked him and they believed him, and he settled the whole matter for Lebanon.
Okay, then so your mother and father had 8 children.
Well, not this father. We had 7 children.
By him?
By him.
Okay, and what were their names in descending
order?
George.
There's 3 of us there. George, Nellie, Evelyn, Mona, Violet, and Charlie, and Philip. That makes 7. Philip is the youngest.
And what happened to Philip?
He and George died. Philip was the youngest, George was the oldest. They died just about a year apart.
From what?
Philip had a convulsion. He was put in a private school and he ate something. He had a convulsion and they didn't know what to do for him. They killed him. And George died of pneumonia in Omaha, Nebraska.
At what age?
21.
21. And Philip died how old?
At the age of 12 or 13. No, he was 15. Yeah, he was 15.
Okay, so then, did your father come to this country?
He came after the war.
After World War I?
Yeah. And he came...
well, now how did you get here? I mean, you were in Dershwire.
Yeah.
You were a young girl.
And my uncle, Saba, my mother's brother, who had been in this country and did very well, came back to visit. And did you ever see the pictures I have of him with the karam and the grape vineyard? And we went on picnics when he went. And he kept telling Mother about how wonderful the United States was. That, and you know, she's the adventurous and aggressive person that she was. Picked up 7 children, all like stair steps. And my grandmother had to come with her, and she brought a maid with her. And I'm sorry they didn't bring me that picture where we have of the whole family the day we left the old country.
You have the picture?
Yes, and Dave has got the glass. My mother, when she died, gave it to me. She didn't know she had it. And so he took it. He's going to have one made and enlarge it and frame it and bring it down. He keeps promising me, and he didn't do it. But that's a treasure, because the whole 7 of us, the maid, and all of us in this picture, she's carrying Philip. He was only a few months old.
This was the bravery, just before you left?
The day we left.
From Beirut?
From Lebanon.
Lebanon.
And we came down to Beirut and got on the boat and came with my Uncle Saba.
But your father didn't come?
No, he couldn't. My mother was such a surprise. Quick.
She said, let's go.
He couldn't do anything. She was dynamite, my mother.
Oh,
she was always a very strong personality.
What, she liked what she heard from your uncle?
Huh?
She liked what she heard?
Oh, my God. She couldn't stop talking about it. And we went on picnics, and that's all they talked about. Talk. All about the
America.
United States.
Yeah.
How beautiful it was. Are you taking this?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Anyway, the more he talked, the more she got eager and picks up and brings 7 children and the maid and my grandmother, and my poor grandfather had to be left alone.
This is her mother?
Yeah, was my mother's mother, and she was the only girl my grandmother had. She had 2 boys and my mother.
So
she just picked up, and my grandmother just wouldn't let her leave because she lived for us kids. She practically raised us, because my mother was, she went horseback riding, and she was very social-minded, and she was the belle of the town, the belle of Lebanon. And you didn't understand Arabic, but many places I went that you and Ned didn't go with me that time, but when I'd go in a house where there was 100 people that remembered my family, and one of them would say, oh, she's the image of her grandmother, Imsaba. She's the image of Imsaba. And they couldn't get over the way I spoke Arabic so fluently and so clearly. And then they'd say, "Oh, none of you girls know. I know we heard you were a beautiful girl, but none of you will ever hold a candle to your mother. She was the belle of the town, the most beautiful woman in Lebanon at one time."
Really?
And she was married when she was 12 years old. And she had my brother George when she was 13.
13? Wow.
And they had to stand her on a stool so she'd be tall enough next to her, to my father at the wedding.
So then, anyway, you got on the boat and you came over here and you landed where? New York?
We landed in Boston.
In Boston?
Because we had an uncle there. His name is Corey, and he was the big cigarette manufacturer. He made the Fatima cigarette, and it's still being made. Fatima, and he was the biggest manufacturer of that cigarette in Boston. And he took us in, and we spent a few days with him there. And then, of course, my Uncle Seba, who brought us and was instrumental in bringing us to this country, was living then in South Dakota, in Beersford, South Dakota. And so after we stayed a while in Boston, we came with him to Beersford, South Dakota, and then my mother settled there for a while. Then we went to Iowa for a while, and then we went back to South Dakota, Sturgis, South Dakota, in the Black Hills. And we stayed there for most of our life. And Mother then went and she filed. She heard, oh God, was she the aggressive one. She heard about that the government of the United States, when you become a citizen, you can file on 160 acres of land free. And you have to farm it to a certain extent for 1 year.
Right. Homestead it.
Homestead it. And so she got each and every one of us. And to show you how daring she was, she took our passport papers, our citizen papers that were filed in New York, and she changed the dates of our birth. We never did get over that. And that was how she was able to file on land, and she got sections and sections of land in all of our names. Each one of us, she got us a piece of land. And then Grandma and I have pictures of Grandma and I out on this land that she filed on in a little shack. Because she built a little shack on every little piece of land.
Yeah, you have to improve it.
You have to live in it 1 year, and improve it. And so she did. And then she went that's how she got in the real estate business. And she would sell land all over the United States. I mean, she advertised all over the United States and sold the land that way. She had people coming from Minneapolis, from Philadelphia, from everywhere, all over the United States, Omaha, Nebraska. She did a lot of business through the mail with Omaha. And I have to tell you a little story about Grandma. She got so she could say a few words of English and she could understand it. But she was living with us, and then Mother put us in a Catholic private school because it was too much for Grandma. But while we were there in Sturgis, and they have a lot of gorgeous apples every fall, the apples, and everybody was peddling apples. And Mama had advertised in Minneapolis to sell land, and a man that was interested in the land came to see Mama, and she had gone to Omaha to make some kind of a deal. And Grandma went to the door, and so many apple peddlers had been coming that week that this man came and he said, "I'm the man from Minneapolis." And the minute he said that, she practically shut the door in his face. But she said, "We have too many apples now, too much apples." And she shut the door. Then he knocked again, or he walked around and to see if he could see somebody, and came back, and he knocked again. He said, "I'm not selling apples." He said, "I want to see Mrs. Muir because I have her letter here," and he tried to show Grandma that we're buying a piece of land from her. And so then, then I came, and I understood what he said, and I asked him in, and I said, "My mother's in Omaha, Nebraska, and she would be home that evening." So he went to the hotel and stayed, and the next day he came back and made a deal with my mother. And he bought the land from 160 acres near Newell, South Dakota.
That's a quarter section.
Yeah, a quarter section. And that's the way Mama started out. And not only did she sell land, she had a photograph gallery, and she had dressmaking. She got a couple women and Grandma to sit and sew for people. And boy, she had things humming and buzzing. She was terrific, I'm telling you. Somebody should have written a book about her. I wish I could have, because she was fantastic. There's just nobody could do what she did. She had these 7 children, and we were all stair steps, all young and little. And then when it got too much and she had to travel a lot, and it was too much for Grandma, poor Grandma, she used to bake and wash and bake bread and cook and everything. And so Mama put us in that Catholic private school. We were in St. Benedict in Sturgis, South Dakota. And I wrote him when I got my Social Security. I wrote him a letter to verify my age and that I had gone there. And so because FK, after Daddy died, he spent the night in the office that night, and he destroyed all of our papers and all of my papers proving that I was married to him as an American citizen, and I was naturalized when I came to this country because I was only 7 years old, and Mama took out naturalization papers, and I became a citizen then, 1907.
1907?
Yeah. And then I married an American citizen.
Well, did your father ever come?
My father
to
came
this country
after the war. I told you, he came after the war to this country, and he lived in South Dakota with the family for a while, just after I was married. Then he came and he spent a few months with me in Idaho, and that's when he took sick. He had prostate trouble, which is nothing, and his brother in New Orleans sent for him, and he said, "Since you're ill, come here and be with me, and we'll take care of you."
In New Orleans?
So he went to New Orleans.
What was his brother's name?
His brother's name was, let me see, it's on the tip of my tongue. I have a cousin there that he only had the one daughter, and I can't remember him.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
But then...
then when he died there.
You mean, so your mother was in this country for how many years before he came?
Oh my God,
10 years?
Oh, longer than 10 years. We were here for many years.
Well, you got
he
here...
came the year that I was pregnant with Norma. So Norma, you can tell that he came that year, and we came in 1907, so you got to figure that out.
You came to this country in 1907?
1907, and then when he came, it was when I was married. I was married in 1917, and I had Norma in 1918.
Right after the war.
Right after the war. And so you can figure that out, see? That makes it
11 years.
More, isn't it?
Well, you came to this country in 1907.
And
1918. That's 11 years difference.
But my father came in
20?
No, he came in 1918.
Okay, 11 years. Between the time you left Lebanon and the time he came here?
Yeah, that's right. I guess that would be figured out.
11 years?
11 years.
Didn't your mother miss him? Didn't he miss her?
Of course. And, he was sending her $50 a month, thinking like $50 in the old country would support a big family. But she was so proud. And because she was the one that wanted to come to this country, and he would, bring that up to her. He said, "You're the one that wanted to go to the United States."
Well, how come he didn't sell the business and come?
Well, he finally took that long during the war. They couldn't sell anything or do anything. And it took him that long to finally dispose of everything. And he owned a lot of beautiful land where they built the hotel in Mount Lebanon. That ground where we went up to, that beautiful hotel in Mount Lebanon, that was ours. And he practically gave it away. And his store, I saw his store, and I got a picture of it, and I got a movie of it when we were there.
Okay, so then he came.
And then he came, and as I say, he lived he stayed there with Mother and the rest of the family in South Dakota for a while, and then he came to visit me because I was the only one in the family that had gotten married.
You married my grandfather when?
In 1917 I was married. And Norma was born 1918, and he left me just before, a couple months before Norma was born. So she was born in April 1918.
So did my grandfather know you in Lebanon?
Yes, but I have to tell you the little story. When Daddy Saheed left the old country, when he came to visit the old country, and he took money back. He had been in this country, and he went to visit.
What, his father sent him here, or he came?
His parents, they let him come. Well, he had uncles, the Saleh uncles, but Saleh, the Saleh family. That's on his mother's side. She's from Batbu Saleh. That's another family in Lebanon.
They had come here?
The uncles were builders in Saco, Maine.
Saco, Maine.
Yeah, and so they brought him, and he was only in his teens. He was about 15 or 18. And he came to this country, and he worked at the fair in Saco, Maine, and he made a nice piece of money. So he went back to visit his folks. And he came to say goodbye to my mother and to our family when he came back to the United States. And my mother was standing in the hall. She said she'd never forget it. She always used to tell me that story. She was nursing me. I was nursing from her breast right there. And she had me in her arms. And he came and he said goodbye to my mother and to my whole family, my father and everybody. And he stooped down and kissed me. Did he ever dream I was going to become his wife someday?
Probably not.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah.
That's like meeting Jeanette over the tabbouleh. Never forget that. Over the word parsley. Over the word tabbouleh. But over the parsley.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what happened. And the hell of it is I can't remember exact dates and things like that, but approximately,
So then he came to this country.
And then he came to this country.
Maine.
And this is another fantastic story, is that he was, are you want me to stop?
No. Go on.
Yeah. So Daddy had written his folks, and they said he should be married, he shouldn't live alone. So he went from one end of the United States to the other looking for a Lebanese girl. So he visited my uncle, the cigarette manufacturer in Boston, to see his girls. He had several beautiful girls. And while he was there, and he used to tell me this story, and I have that same picture, and he said he was in the living room and he saw this picture on the piano of us, of the Mural family. We had sent it to my uncle. My mother had sent it to her because she had a photograph gallery and she was always taking pictures of us. So she sent him this picture and he had it enlarged and he had it on the piano. And he said, he later told me this, he never mentioned it then, but he was there and looked at all the girls in Boston, met all the Lebanese families, but none of them appealed to him. And when he saw my picture on the piano, he said he looked at my face in that picture and he said to himself, that's the girl that's to be my wife. That's the girl I want. So he kept going from Boston. He stopped in Detroit. He stopped in Chicago. He made several stops where he got names of the Lebanese people. And he visited all of them along the way. And he came to South Dakota. They're wonderful. I like to have one of them.
Oh, it's great.
Anyway, he got to South Dakota and he came, and we had at that time a German woman that was we had lost grandma, and a German woman that
died?
Yeah, grandma died in 1914.
Oh.
Before I was married.
In South Dakota?
In Sturgis, South Dakota.
What did she die of?
She had cancer of the uterus.
Oh.
And Mama took her to Mayo's, and she took me to Mayo's at the same time because I was always such a tomboy and always so active that I was always getting pains in my side. And Mama wondered what it was, so she said, since we're going to make Mayo Brothers, I'm going to take you along with Grandma. And she took her there, and they couldn't do very much for her. But me, they undressed me and laid me on my stomach. And I never forget, Charlie Mayo come in, Dr. Charlie Mayo came in, and they had taken a lot of tests, and they examined me and everything, and he examined me and everything, and he hit me on the fanny and said, there's nothing wrong with this girl that a good dose of castor oil won't cure her. And so he said, she's as healthy as she can be. And so you just take her home, give her a good dose of castor oil, and clean out her bowels, and that's it. But I'm so sorry, he said, we can't do any more for your mother. The cancer had spread all over, and so she came back, and shortly after that she died anyway.
Is she buried in
She's buried in Sturgis, South Dakota. Yeah. And
what is her name again? Your grandmother's name?
Grandma?
Yeah.
Elmise. Your mother was named after her.
Her first name was Elmise?
Elmise. Elmas, meaning diamond in Arabic.
And what was her last name again?
Heikel.
Elmise Heikel.
Elmise Heikel. Yeah. So anyway, but her maiden name was Strad. She was from the famous Strad family. They were prominent in Beirut and Lebanon and everywhere. Very fine family. Brilliant. And so anyway, we, where was I? We came to, Saheed came. Out of the blue, you know. He called us from the hotel in Sturgis, and he said, I'm your cousin. And he said, I would like to see you, the family, while I'm here. I'm from Lebanon, and we're from the same family, you know. And Mama wasn't there, but my brother George Oh, he was thrilled to death because he loved to see people from our country and people that are related. And so we all got together and got quite excited, and we invited him for dinner. And I was the head chef in the family. Although I didn't know too much about cooking, I knew how to put a lot of garlic in everything. And I cooked string beans and rice, and I put a whole handful of garlic in it. I'll never forget. We invited him for dinner, and he came, and we treated him like he was a relative, because he said to us, he's our cousin. And then Mama said she would be home the next day, or a couple of days later. So he waited around, and he and George used to sit and talk, and George enjoyed him so much. And because thinking, well, he's from Lebanon, he's a cousin, he's related, and so on. So anyway, when Mama came, even before Mama came, one night he and I we were all sitting in the living room, and he asked me if I would come out and sit in the swing outside on the porch, which I did. And he said that he came out, he wants to get married, and wanted to know if I would marry him. And I had only known him 2 days.
2 days?
Yeah. And I turned against him, because I didn't want to get married. I thought I was only not quite 14. I was turned 14 in the entrance.
And he was how old?
And then he was 33.
33?
33. And when we were married, he was 33, and I was 14. So anyway, I kind of turned against him, so he went to Mona, conniving Mona, and he told her, he said, if you help me with Evelyn, he said, and try to talk her into it, he said, she didn't like the idea of talking marriage. And so we would walk every evening around the house and take walks and talk and talk. And so when Mama came, she said, well, she's too young to get married now, and you'll have to wait. She has to finish her school and so on. So, Mama, she was dynamite. So he said, well, I'll invite you to Idaho and to come and visit and see what business I'm in and where I live and everything. So I loved that, because I'd never gone on a trip or gone anywhere. So I was all for that. So we did. We came. He talked Mama into coming, and we came to Idaho to visit him. And that's when he gave me the ring. And Mama said, well, you'll have to wait 2 years at least. I want her to finish school and to be a little older.
He gave you a ring?
So in about 3 months, he telephones. And I had never received a long-distance telephone, and that was the most exciting thing for me. And Mama wasn't home, and he said, I would like to come out and see you. And
what was he doing in Idaho?
He was in construction. He was
building?
North Pacific Construction Company. He was the head of it. He was the one that organized it. And he took his cousins in, George and Mac Mittry, and he took them in as partners. Yeah. He didn't have the others then. And then Oscar came in the picture later, and then FK was the last one he came. My daddy sent him money to come from the old country, and he educated him. He sent him to school so he'd learn bookkeeping, because he was good at that. And then he took him in the company, and he gave him shares of his own part of the company. So anyway, I got the ring when we visited him in Idaho, and we decided we'd wait 2 years. Well, then 2 months, 3 months or so, he calls me up, and Mama wasn't there. And he said, I would like to know if I can come. And I said, of course, you're welcome, you know. I thought he's coming for a visit. But when Mama got home, she gave me hell. She said, well, he's coming. He wants to marry you and take you now. You're too young to get married now. He can't. He has to wait the 2 years. And I said, well, he said he just couldn't wait. And he felt like he just had to get married now or something. So when he came, I kind of got a little more mellow towards him. And I kind of got mad at Mama for being so adamant about it. And she said, absolutely not. And she said, you have to wait at least till she finishes school. And she said, well, we'll make it another year at least. And I said, Mama, and in Arabic I said to her, are you making a monkey out of him? And you know, I began to respect him more and like him more. And I didn't have exactly a lot of love for him. I hadn't known him enough. So when he heard me say that, he told me that after we were married. He said, it just went through me so. He said, I never forgot it. I thought that was the cutest, the most beautiful thing anybody could say. He said, I loved the way you said it to your mother. I never got over it. So we got married, and George liked him very much, my brother, and he was my best man. So we
got married?
Arranged a marriage, and I got married at home by the Justice of the Peace. And
where?
In my home in Sturgis, South Dakota, and it was in the paper and everything. And that's how Doris Mittry, she used to be in Sturgis, South Dakota, and she read it in the paper because they had 2-3 articles, nice articles. Mama was prominent there. The bankers loved her because she was so aggressive and she made money and whatnot.
This was what year?
It was 1917.
You got married.
Yeah. So we got married and came to Idaho, Pocatello, Idaho, where Daddy was living. We lived in the hotel for 3-4 months. And then we finally decided we'd like a home. So we rented a house and moved in the house. After 5-6 months, I guess it was, we lived in a hotel. And then later I got pregnant and with Norma. And she was born in that house. We had Dr. Klein, who was a German cutting machine, C.M. Klein, and everybody called him Cutting Machine Klein. He was the most wonderful doctor in that state.
Yeah.
Everybody loved him. He was a terrific doctor. And she was born at home in that brass bed I gave Kathy. You know, I told her the other day, I said, don't ever let anything happen to that furniture or bed, because that was my bedroom where all 4 of the first 4 were born. Babe was born in Los Angeles in the hospital, and I had the others all at home, all 4 of them. Anyway, and I learned to like him and love him more every day because he was so wonderful. He was such a wonderful, loving person, and when he was so happy when Norma was born, he said, it's just something I always dreamt that I would have. A beautiful, with the big brown eyes. He said, when they first showed her to me and she opened her eyes, he said, I could have eaten her up. She just looked so beautiful. And he said, I'm so happy. And a year later, I had Cal, because we wanted a boy, and right away, quick, I got pregnant a year later, because I couldn't nurse her very long. I only nursed her 3 months. I never had enough milk, so my sister-in-law, Melky, had Lillian when I had Cal, when I had Norma. And she was still nursing Lillian, and she helped me nurse Cal. Because oh God, he practically ate me up. And I gave him a bottle, and I nursed him both breasts every hour on the hour. And then Melky was nursing him. She was the wet nurse, Aunt Melky. And then a year and a half later, I had Adele. Yeah. And another year in between Adele and Tootsie, your mother, I had Tootsie. And I'll never forget, here was Adele's bed in our bedroom, her crib. And Tootsie was born at 7 o'clock in the morning, and Adele was still asleep. And she was laying there on her stomach. And she heard Tootsie cry as she was born. The doctor was in my bedroom there, and she was born, and he slapped her, and she cried. And Adele bounces up. I'll never forget that. I wish I had a picture of it. She bounces her head up and looks to see what that was. She was startled to hear a baby cry. You know how they scream when they're born. And Dr. Klein wasn't easy with his slaps. He really banged her on your mother. And I said to him, he said, well, you got a beautiful little, how do you think she got her name? He says, you got a beautiful little Tootsie. He says, that is the most beautiful little baby Tootsie or something like that. I said, I wanted a boy so I could have 2 boys and 2 girls. He said, well, if you don't want her, I'll be glad to take her home. He said, Mrs. Klein would love to have her. And he said, I'll be glad to take her home. And that's how she got the name Tootsie.
I wondered how she got
she got Tootsie from Dr. Klein. I'll never forget it. And I'll never forget that look on Adele's face as she bounced up and heard her scream and cry. And then we had to move Adele out of that crib and put Tootsie in there. And that's the way the life went. And then we had J.C. Austin, who used to be in Idaho Falls and was a dear close friend of your grandfather for many years. And he moved to California. And he kept writing us about California. And of course, I had read an ad in the paper before I was married, before I met him or anything, about California and Hollywood and whatnot. And I used to love to read about it and the climate and see those palm trees and the sun shines. And I love sunshine. So I was always nagging Daddy, let's go to California, let's just visit. And he had promised me that we'd go on a honeymoon to Hawaii, which we never did. I said, I don't want to go to Hawaii, I don't want to go anywhere, just to California. So J.C. Austin kept writing us to come and visit him in California. And because he was an architect, a big architect, and his plans, Daddy had built many of the schools that he had drawn as an architect. He had a whole floor of architects. So anyway, we finally, I said, every year we have a baby and it's hard for us to travel. So I said, let's go while I have my mother-in-law and my sister-in-laws who came from the old country in Elmise, and all of them were living with us. And because we had the bigger home. Daddy built those 2 homes on the corner, and the big one we lived in, and we rented the one in the back. And Tamim stayed with FK, but Emmeline and Grandma and Anise stayed with me. So Grandma kept saying, you want to go to California? Go on, take her to California. Leave one of the babies here, because I couldn't carry Adele and Tootsie. They both couldn't walk. Yet Adele was just a year old when Tootsie was born. So she was walking, but she was heavy. Very heavy. Adele was the fattest one I had. And so anyway, one day we just decided, we picked up, and put on and left everything, left Adele, because we were going to go for 2 weeks. And you know how you leave your home if you're just going for 2 weeks. You don't take very much.
Right.
And I had 3 children with me. So we came to Long Beach where J.C. Austin was living, and he rented us a place at the Virginia Hotel right on the beach, and they had cottages, and we stayed in one of the cottages. First we stayed in the hotel, but with 3 kids it was better to go in the cottage because you had room in the yard and whatnot. So we moved to the cottage and we stayed there. And J.C. came one night and he took us out to dinner. And while I was dancing with him during the dinner hour, he said to me, "Well, Evelyn, how do you like California?" I practically melted in his arms, and I said, "Oh, J.C., I never want to see Idaho as long as I live. Do you know the day before I left, I washed all the diapers so I could bring them for Tootsie, and I had to hang them out on the line, and every diaper I hung turned into a board in 2 minutes, froze into a board. It was 42 below zero when we left Idaho, and when we got to California, breathtaking. It was breathtaking to see the palms, the sunshine, the warmth. It was so gorgeous. I couldn't believe that